Tag Heuer has announced its retro-style throwback with Kith, and I have thoughts. Not that anyone actually asked. But nevertheless, let's go through what I think is probably one of the worst value watches to be released recently anyway. So let's start with what these actually are. With a 35mm Formula 1 throwback styled watches. They come in various different colorways, many of which are colorful, some of which are a little bit more sedate. They retail for $1,500 or perhaps 2,200 Australian dollary dues if you're outside of the United States. They have, like I said, retro throwback styles to the original Formula 1, which is not itself bad. It's just that they're very expensive for what you get. They come in various bright colors and there are 10 designs to choose from overall. You can also get a fancy display case to display all of these limited edition watches if you want to show off to your friends. Not that your friends are actually going to care. Now, Tag Heuer is all very excited by them. But my first question is, what exactly is Kith? As you might guess from the fact that I'm wearing a Uniqlo jumper at the moment, I had never heard of Kith before this collaboration. However, it appears that Kith is a big name in streetwear. So if that's important to you, well, this collaboration might be for you. But if you've never heard of Kith, you probably just have a whole lot of question marks about what exactly is going on here. Now, apparently Kith's founder, Ronnie Feig, is a big watch collector, and he was really having the brainwave for this collaboration. And he seems to be familiar with what all of the cool kids are wearing, which I evidently am not. The Tag Heuer states that this is crafted for collectors, and it will fuse the spirit of both worlds. They are apparently a legacy propelled into the future, and were supposedly a much-awaited comeback. Awaited by whom? It's not clear, and exactly how this is propelled into the future, again, isn't clear. And exactly how it fuses the spirit of both worlds, again, isn't totally clear. Other than the fact that they probably saw other streetwear collaborations, for example, many of the luxury brands collaborating with Adidas or Nike, and thought, here's some money that we can make. But it does beg the question of what exactly do you get for your $1,500? Well, you get a quartz watch. Now, a quartz movement is not per se bad, but it depends on the price point that you are paying and what exactly that quartz movement is. Perhaps, for example, if they were advertising a particularly interesting quartz movement, or one that were particularly good, maybe like the Breitling Colt range, then maybe you could sort of see some justification for it. Or if they were using interesting materials, again, like the Breitling Colt Sky Racer, then again you could maybe make an argument for it. But here they come in steel and PVD. Basically, you're getting a steel or a plastic watch for your money. It's not like these are interesting or unique or special materials. They are standard materials with a quartz movement that appears to be a standard quartz movement. Now, what about the size? Well, like I've said, these are 35mm, which is probably not going to open up the market very much. However, maybe some people that are convinced that Kith is the next thing are going to go out and buy this and be convinced that a 35mm watch is what they should be buying. It appears companies are trying to make the small watch trend happen. They're trying to convince people that small watches are going to be the future, and the trend toward larger watches is going to end. I'm not sure that this trend is actually going to take off. Some celebrities appear to be trying to do it, but I think it's just brands trying to make more and more money. They've decided, well, large watches became a thing, maybe we can just make small watches a thing and extract yet more money out of our customers. That appears to be what they're trying to do. Now, the design itself is okay. It's a retro Formula 1 design. I don't per se dislike it. I've never been the biggest fan of this particular design, but that of course is subjective. I have no idea why this throwback is somehow a special throwback, but it is what it is. Now, on the dial, it has the Just Us Kith slogan. Now, maybe that's important to some people. I personally don't care about it at all. The design and colors are nice enough. They're very similar to the original Formula 1. The colors are very bright and vibrant, which can be fun. Some of the dials are very retro and throwback-like, which again can be fun. They are what they are. They're pleasant enough, but I'm not sure that I'm necessarily astounded by this. They appear to be kind of like a reissue of one of the old designs, maybe with some updated colours. Now also on this watch, we can see some other nods to Kith if that's important to you, or if you really want to up the logos on your watch. For example, as I've indicated, on the dial we have the Just Us slogan for Kith. We've got the Kith Heuer logo instead of the normal Tag Heuer logo. The logo has been changed for added brand and street cred. On the back of the watch, we've got Kith emblazoned on the back of the case. You can also see various different slogans in italic font around the watch, which may be actually important to you or not. To me, it is not. Now around the rest of the watch, you can see this on the buckle as well. So on the back of the buckle, you've got Kith Heuer rather than Tag Heuer. The bracelet is again a throwback bracelet, which again is reminiscent of the older watches, but it's been slightly updated so it looks a little bit less old. The rest of the dial, well, we've got a bezel, which is again a bit of a throwback, although that has been to some extent featured a little bit in some of the newer Tag Heuer Formula 1s, albeit in a slightly different design. Now exactly what slogans are on this watch does seem to vary a little bit based on the actual watch you buy. For example, one of them has Kith and Kim seemingly emblazoned across the top of the watch. I don't know exactly what that's a reference to. I'm sure some people who are into streetwear could tell me, but to me it's reminiscent of Kith and Kim, which is an Australian sitcom. I assume that is not actually what their intention is. On some of the more plastic ones, you've got Formula 1 at the bottom of the watch, just in case you forgot what your watch happens to be. In terms of other technical specs, well, I already mentioned it's a quartz movement. It does apparently have a turning bezel, which I'm sure is important, and they've got water resistance up to 200 meters. Although, if these are truly special editions, and they're limited editions, and they're going to be collector's items, then I suspect people won't be using that water resistance. The watch also has seemingly quite bright looms so you can see and use the watch at night. Now to some extent I can see a purpose for a plasticky watch for like sports type things, but that would of course cut across the idea of this being a collector's item. Now it does appear to come in some interesting packaging. I already talked about the collector's watch case, which apparently is limited to 75 editions to make it a collector's item, but each watch comes in its own different case that is associated with the colorway. Tag Heuer describes the case as a, quote, striking fusion of legacy and modernity, whatever that actually means. Personally, I think you might be better off just buying a used Formula 1, and I personally also think these aren't very good value. Either you could buy a used Formula 1 in this particular design pattern, that will be relatively cheap, or you could go out and you could buy a used automatic Tag Heuer for the same or less than what they're trying to retail these for. And I would take the automatic over a quartz movement myself. And I'll include some links in the description below to some alternatives to this watch that could potentially end up being better value, at least in my opinion. So as you can tell, my thoughts on this collaboration aren't exactly positive, but they will probably sell in reasonable numbers because they'll convince people that they are going to be the trendy thing to buy. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this Tag Heuer.